Hello and welcome to the Lost in the Ozarks channel. I'm Gary and I'm going to be your host this afternoon for a little mushroom hunt here we're going to do. I'm going to have to look for some edible mushrooms. I'm going to check some places that I've seen before. I've gathered some chicken of the woods mushrooms. So we're going to check that place and see if we can find anything else. But it's late September. And the last couple of days we've had about 2.5 inches of rain. Night before last we got 2 inches slowly overnight, so that should definitely, after a dry spell, bring the mushrooms out. So I'm going to walk down here to a place where I know some turkey tail mushrooms are, and then we'll kind of go from there. I'm going to go back and visit a tree that I have back in the spring. I got quite a bit of chicken of the woods off of, so just stick with us and we'll see what we can find this afternoon. And as soon as I find something, I'll be right back. Well, this shows why you should definitely keep your eyes open when you're walking through the woods and walking down the road for that matter, because right here on the side of the road on a dead log I found a huge clump of chicken of the woods. Those are beautiful. Okay, so I'm going to sit up here and I'm going to harvest this, and I'm going to show you how to use your knife to do this so you don't mess up the mycelium, and then you can come back sometimes in the fall and the spring, but for sure, you know, by next spring this ought to come out. If not, by next fall we should have another clump of chicken of the woods on here. So I'm going to get my knife out here and set the camera up, and I'll show you how we harvest this. Okay, so two things I always carry with me. Got a good sharp knife, and I've got this mesh bag for putting the mushrooms in. And with these chicken of the woods, you don't want to just take it and rip it off the log, because what'll happen is you'll damage the mycelium that's growing inside the log, and it'll take it longer to reconstitute, regrow itself, and to fruit out a mushroom. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a good sharp knife, and we're just going to cut it right along the edge of the wood there. This one seems to be, sometimes they'll get woody on this part, and you can just trim off the part that's tender, but this one seems to be tender all the way through, so I'm just going to cut it off here. Just like that. And you can see it's yellow underneath. That's one of the ways you can tell for sure that this is chicken of the woods. It's got this orange color, and it'll have a lighter yellow kind of a fringe. And this may be darker orange, or it may be light like this, but then turn it over and it won't have gills, and it's this nice pale yellow color underneath. So that's the way that you can definitely figure out if it's chicken of the woods. And this chicken of the woods here is large enough that it has probably put out spores already. So more than likely, we're not going to have to worry about leaving some here in case, because the mycelium is already in this wood. And so these things will put out their spores, and they will, when the spores come out, they just go out through the woods. And you know, it really takes 2 spores getting together so that they can start growing. But these things are spread by the wind, and they will go for a long ways because they weigh hardly anything. But we're going to take this little bit too. We're going to leave that on the log so that we haven't damaged the mycelium any. You can definitely see this part, the mycelium's in here. This is the fruiting body here. So we're going to leave this just like it is. And we should be able to come here again in the spring and harvest some more chicken of the woods. So I'm going to pack this up, and we'll head on down and see if we can find some more. This is not even the spot that I've actually been to before and harvested chicken of the woods. This is my first time seeing and harvesting this, so stick with me and we're going to walk a little more and see if we can find some more. So guys, I hadn't even gone 15 yards and I found another huge bunch of chicken of the woods. So I'm gonna harvest this here, and this is why you always keep your eyes open when you're in the woods, because I mean, this is a huge cluster of chicken of the woods, and it's gonna be some good eating. And we're just, same thing, we're just gonna use the knife. And when you get this back home, you're gonna have to clean it up, because there's gonna be bugs and stuff in this chicken of the woods mushroom. There's just no way to avoid it. So you're gonna have to clean this stuff pretty good when you get it home. But this stuff is, I'm talking about good eating. And like I said, I'm just cutting this off above the wood so we're not damaging the mycelium, so we can come back later and get some more. And we're going to leave a little bit of this, some of the smaller pieces I'm going to leave just so they can sporulate and probably get some more. Something crawling there. And this is actually, just take your knife and run along the wood there. And it leaves a little bit left there to kind of protect the mycelium that's on the inside of the tree. And some, I always leave a few couple of the mushroom fruiting bodies that are coming out, just so they can, if they haven't spread all their spores, there'll still be some spores there that that'll be spread, so that, you know, you always want to be leaving a little bit when you're foraging, so that, you know, you'll have more in the future that you can forage. Because, you know, sustainable foraging is the only way, because if you take everything, then whether it's plants or mushrooms, then they can't reproduce and there won't be any more. So that's definitely something to think about. You know, don't take all of it in an area, leave some so that it can reproduce, and it'll keep feeding you then. So let me get this all bagged up here, and we'll head on down the road to a couple of other places I still need to check. Because, you know, I come by 2 or 3 times a year just to check the logs and see if they're actually fruiting. And wow, look what I found. And this is not the log I was looking for, but it is definitely a nice bunch of chicken of the woods. Look at this. Right on the side of the tree here. And then there's some coming out of the bottom of the tree over here too. So this is not the log that I'm looking for. It's on over here a little bit further. Actually, it's right back there. I can see it back there, but apparently those spores got through, because I haven't seen these on the way to it. But there's even some over here on the side of this log. You can see right here. I'm going to leave this for a little while and come back and get it later. I'm just going to mark it on the GPS so it'll be easy to find, because this is another nice bunch of chicken of the woods. So let me mark this on the GPS and we'll go see if we can find that other log. Well, I'm not believing this, guys, but after I found that other new patch of chicken of the woods I hadn't seen before, wow. Found one here coming out of this dead tree. And then if we can walk right over here, get through this dead stuff without stepping on a copperhead, I have found right over here another big bunch. Well, not a big bunch, but quite a few here on the side of this log. We've got some coming out this side. This is a big bunch on the other side. Wow, look at this. That is awesome. So I'll definitely be coming back to get that. I'm going to mark it on the GPS so that I don't miss it. And then we're going to go and I'm going to see if I can find this log that I actually found some chicken of the woods on before. I'm finding a bunch of new ones, but I can't find the log that I actually found it on before. So I'm gonna mark this on the GPS and then I'll get back to searching again. And, you know, while I'm out here looking for this log that those other mushrooms were on, I found these. Not sure what type of mushrooms they are, but they've got water in them, so they've been here a little while. They're still kind of fresh. And that's one thing, you know, I wanted to mention is if you cannot 100% identify the mushrooms that you find in the woods, then do not put them in your mouth, because even mushrooms that you think you know have lookalikes that are pretty close that can be toxic and can make you sick, or they can even kill you. So always be sure that you can 100% identify any mushroom that you pick in the wild. If you're not growing them yourself, then you need to be able to, you need to get you a good field guide and use the 4 or 5 different characteristics that they'll list on there that, you know, that you can use to differentiate between those. Like, you know, chicken of the woods, there's also a, you know, they're pretty easy to identify, but there's also one that's orange, that's called a jack-o'-lantern mushroom. And the way you tell the difference is the jack-o'-lantern mushroom has gills underneath, where the chicken of the woods has pores, and that's, you know, light colored yellow that I showed you earlier in the video. So, you know, that's just something to keep in mind. Be very careful if you're going to go out and hunt mushrooms, and only pick the ones that you are 100% sure that you can identify. So I'm going to head back to the house now and show you how we cut these up, wash them down, cut them up, put them up so that we can cook some later. And I'm going to keep my eyes open on the way out just in case. There's a spider web. Get him out of my way so he's not crawling down my face. And I'm going to head up here and head back up the hill and back up toward the house. And I'll be back whenever I get ready to work on cleaning these. So stay tuned for that. Okay, so I'm back here and I've kept these chicken of the woods in the refrigerator for a couple of days. This is more to knock down the bugs, and because when you go gather these in the woods, they're going to have bugs on them if it's warm. Now if it's, you know, freezing cold, you may not, but these things are going to be frozen. So what, oh, okay, so what I like to do is spray them off with the water hose first, knock off any loose dirt and bugs, and then you can kind of go from there. And I also like to kind of go back here. This is pretty tough. They're usually spongy out here toward this end, nice and tender, and then as you get closer to where they come out of the tree, they'll get a little hard. So I just take a fillet knife and cut anything that's a little woody out, and then keep the parts that are nice and tender. And that's what we're going to cook. And I like to just trim off anything that looks funny, and we'll put those in the compost pile. And then just take a fillet knife and just cut them up into strips. This is what we're going to fry. Once you start taking it apart, you may find the little places that need to be cut out. That's fine. And then we're just going to take these, and the smaller ones you can just cut up into chunks. Those are good to use like in soups or different things like that. And you can also just break them up. And while we're out here cleaning this chicken of the woods, I've got some soaking right now. I like to soak it to see if, you know, any bugs come out of it before I start cutting it up. So I found some puffball mushrooms, some common puffballs here, and I'm going to clean those too. I just use a fillet knife and cut them into slices, and I'll show you here in a second how you can tell for sure that these are puffballs. When you look inside of a puffball, it should be just white and spongy. these can be mistaken for some Amanita species, which are toxic. But if you cut an Amanita open, there'll be a mushroom imprint on the inside of this. So you can see here, this is just white and spongy. So that's one of the ways you can definitely tell this apart. And these things really taste really good. So I'm going to cut these up, and then I'm gonna take these and dry them out so I can save them for this winter and use them in soups or something like that. I may fry them up, you know, just whatever. These do just the same as any other mushrooms. You can saute them, you can stir fry them. There's lots of ways to fix them. And you want to make sure that they're not yellow on the inside. You want to make sure they are white, because if they're yellow on the inside, then they're past the time to eat. They're starting to make spores, and they're just not as good. See this one? This one's there's a little bit of yellow in here. So we're going to put this one in the compost pile because it's to the point of creating spores, and it's not going to taste good anymore. Okay, so now we're going to get back to cleaning the chicken of the woods. And like I said, what I like to do is I will soak it just for a minute. It's going to soak up a little bit of water, but it helps run any bugs that are out of it so that you can get it nice and clean. And then all I do is take a fillet knife and I'll just cut it into strips. So depending on your use, strips, chunks, and there's going to be some discoloration a little bit, so if that bothers you, you can trim that out too. As you can see with these, there's some discoloration on there. It looks like dirt, but it's really not dirt. So I'll just take a fillet knife and just kind of cut that off. And then also, like I said, this part here closest to the tree can get woody. So just go out to where it's really tender, cut the other part off, put this in your compost pile. Now we come to the best part of harvesting the chicken of the woods mushrooms, cooking and eating them. We're also going to cook some of our own shiitake mushrooms that we grow here on the farm. So let's get started cooking. Now go ahead and place a skillet with oil on the stove and heat the oil while you're battering the mushrooms. We like to cook them outdoors on the wood stove when it's hot outside to prevent heating up the kitchen.
Alright, a little garlic, black pepper, and salt into the flour that we're going to make the batter with. And eggs and a little milk that will be coating the mushrooms with.
Take the mushroom slices, put them in the eggs and milk, and then roll them in the seasoned flour to coat them well. Once all the mushrooms are battered, it's time to put them in the oil to fry. Just listen to that sizzle. You want the oil hot, but not so hot that it's smoking. That way the mushrooms will be crispy on the outside and tender on the inside, just like fried chicken fingers. After cooking the chicken of the woods mushrooms, it's time to cook the shiitake mushrooms. Once again, we batter them with the seasoned batter, and these are fresh shiitake mushrooms that I cut from the fruiting blocks earlier in the day. And we also sell shiitake mushrooms we grow. We dehydrate them so they're shelf stable, and you simply need to rehydrate them in water prior to cooking. We sell them from our online shop on our website. Use the link shown on the screen, or we'll leave a link in the description. Now these mushrooms make a great vegan meal. They can be substituted in recipes that call for meat, and they're both nutritious and tasty, with a meat-like texture. And here's the meal ready to eat. Fried chicken of the woods and shiitake mushrooms with mashed potatoes on the side. If you enjoyed this video, please take a moment to hit the like button. It really helps us with the YouTube algorithm. And please subscribe if you want to see our future videos from around the Ozarks. And as always, thanks for watching.